So I've gone over the new enhancement modification system coming with Borderlands 4 in multiple previous videos, but in this video I want to go over every single enhancement we have seen so far in all of the publicly released footage for Borderlands 4, and you can also find all of these at mentalmars.com. I'll have a link in the description, but a lot of these are super interesting. And if you haven't heard about the enhancement system, I would recommend checking out some of my previous videos, but this is a new gear slot replacing the artifacts from previous Borderlands games, and essentially the main function of these is to buff up a specific manufacturer. So if you have a weapon with a specific manufacturer part on it, this will give some new effect or buff up that manufacturer's special effect. And in those previous videos, I've gone over a bunch of examples of these, even going over the one legendary of these we've been able to see. And these items are primarily giving the enhancement effects, and they're also giving some bonus effects. And once you get up to legendary rarity, they have two enhancement effects. One that's the legendary specific, the other that seems to be randomly rolled. And on top of that, you also just have some stat increases. So we can get that out of the way pretty quickly. These enhancement mods also have bonus stats they get on them that are also randomly rolled. On Epic, you seem to get 3 bonus stats, and on Legendary, we've only seen 2, but it's theorized that we will be getting 3 on that as well. So similar to a lot of other slots from previous Borderlands games, you'll just have random things like increased accuracy or increased damage or increased critical damage. So all of those type of stats, but one of the big differences with this slot is they also have weapon specific increases. So let's say SMG status effect damage, or SMG splash damage, or SMG splash radius, or SMG equip speed, things like that. So there are a bunch for specific weapons. This is something I'm on the fence if I like or not. There is one part of this that I do like, that they can make these bonuses stronger because they are for a specific weapon. And if you get really crazy rolls that have all of the buffs to that specific weapon you're using, it can feel really good. But this also pollutes the pool of rolls you can get with just so many random rolls of all the different weapon types that it can be really hard or almost impossible to get the actual rolls you want. So I'm still on the fence about how I feel about the bonus rolls on these. But that brings us into the enhancement rolls themselves, and these are the things you actually care about on this gear slot. So starting off, we have Daughterless with Backup Plan. Guns with a Daughterless licensed parts slowly regenerate ammo while equipped. And this is reserved ammo, so this isn't into the magazine. This is just regenerating ammo for that weapon just over time. I'm pretty interested in how this is actually generating ammo. If it's just like generated ammo based on a timer, or if this is generating ammo based on a timer and also based on like a % of the total ammo. So if you had a weapon with a ton of ammo, it would give you more ammo back more quickly. If you had less ammo, like a shotgun or something, it'd give it back much less quickly, which is probably how it's going to be scaled. But this could just generally be good, even though I think other things are going to be much stronger. We have Hyperion with Bulwark. Weapons with Hyperion licensed parts gain 100% weapon shield capacity. I don't think this will really be used for much unless there's some very specific thing where shield is super strong. Then we have one of the most ridiculous ones, I think, with Jacobs with a Bounce Pass. Guns with a Jacobs license part increasing number of possible ricochets by 1. And Jacobs is getting the effect from Borderlands 3 where when you crit an enemy with that part, or with a weapon with that part on it, it will ricochet bullets to nearby enemies. I'm wondering if this is guaranteed or if this is just some % chance, because this says possible ricochets, so I don't know exactly how that's going to work. Just this effect is absolutely ridiculous, especially when you keep in mind that you don't need a Jacobs weapon for this. You need any weapon with a Jacobs part on it. So you can have some weapon that shoots like 20 rounds a second that you're just spam headshotting enemies, and now it's just ricocheting more. You could use like a shotgun with a bunch of pellets, hit like 20 pellets into a crit spot, and it just ricochets everywhere and can increase the ricochets of that, which would essentially be able to double the ricochets. So this one is just absolutely ridiculous. Then we have Jacobs with Leaper. Weapons with a Jacobs license part gain a 40% chance to ricochet non-critical bullets, which is really cool. I'm wondering what type of weapons this is going to be much better with. Maybe something with like Torg stickies or something you can't crit as easily with. It may be really good for that. Then we have Jacob's Piercer. Guns with Jacob's license part have a 20% chance to grant a critical hit. So now just shooting anywhere with Jacob's has a chance to crit. So that could also be really good on weapons. I do think the additional ricochets would probably just be better, but there may be some crazy thing with this that allows it to be ridiculous. Then we have Jacob's with Sequencer. Guns with Jacob license parts grant consecutive critical hits a stacking 5% damage bonus for a maximum of 8 stacks. This one could also be ridiculous. So if you have a Jacob's part on it and you don't miss crits, you get this damage bonus stacking up to 8 times. So a potential 40% damage increase if you're hitting all crits, which on some specific bosses or enemies can actually be really easy, and that's just a massive damage increase. Then we have Maliwan with Transfuser. On kill, weapons with Maliwan license parts spread their active status effect to up to 3 nearby enemies. And this one is actually really cool, and I think is going to be really crazy with some combinations, like anything you can ricochet bullets around. You could even do this with a weapon with a Jacob's license part so it can ricochet, but also with Maliwan to have that status effect chance with a really high percent chance. And you could just ricochet these elements everywhere, and you could even switch the elements with the elemental switch, ricochet these status effects everywhere, and then as you're just AoEing enemies down, they're all blowing up and putting these status effects on even more enemies. So this could just be really cool for a status effect focused build. I could even see this with something like Vex, where you can use her action skills with different elements depending on what weapon you're using, just applying tons of different elements with her summons to a bunch of different enemies, and then as they die, they just keep applying those status effects to nearby enemies. It could get really ridiculous. Then we have Maliwan with Mixologist. Guns with Maliwan license parts deal plus 10% bonus damage from the inactive mode's element. So this one is quite weird because you're getting a damage bonus for the element that you're not currently on with a Maliwan weapon, because Maliwan has the switch to switch between elements. So I guess this is more for damage increasing of status effects, which it does actually seem like there are going to be status effect builds. So this could be good for that, but 10% damage bonus seems a bit low for something like this. Then we have Maliwan with Primed Potency. Guns with Maliwan license part have a 100% status effect chance on the first bullet after reload. So some specific weapons this could be really good with crazy fast reload speed, just pretty much having a guaranteed status effect chance on the next bullet. I don't think this is going to be one of the stronger ones for normal play, but there may be some crazy combinations where with specific things this could be really good. Then we have Maliwan with Synthesizer. Guns with Maliwan license part have a plus 25% status effect damage. Now this one actually seems just better than Mixologist. You just have more status effect damage at all times, and 25% is pretty big. This is probably going to be used quite a bit in any build with a lot of status effect damage. So then we have Order with Ammo Generator. Weapons with Order license parts slowly refill from reserve ammo while held. So this is kind of the opposite of the Daedalus one we went over, where it generated ammo into reserves while holding the weapon. This takes ammo out of your reserves and puts them in your weapon while that weapon is held. This one will probably be used more because depending on the weapon and how your weapon fire rate and magazines go, you could potentially have a weapon that's essentially infinite ammo with this. Then we have Order with Free Charger. Weapons with Order license parts at max charge have a 30% chance to make the next shot's charge time and ammo cost 0. So the Order is the charge up weapon where you have these multiple symbols where the more you charge up, the more damage it does. So if you use at max charge, you now have a chance to basically have no charge time on the next and make the ammo cost 0. So that could be pretty good for some specific weapons. Then we have Order with Muzzle Brake. Weapons with Order license parts gain 50% accuracy and 50% burst fire speed when firing from maximum charge. So this is just essentially buffing up Order weapons when you're using them at max charge, which could be really strong again with specific weapons. Then we have Ripper with Freeloader. Weapons with Ripper license parts have a 30% chance to instantly refill the magazine when it's empty. This one could be really good. I'm not sure how good this will be because of the randomness, but for general play over time, this will feel pretty good to use. Just not sure on the exact strength of it. Then we have Ripper with High Roller. Weapons with Ripper licensed parts increase weapon damage by 2% for each consecutive shot fired for a max of 25 stacks, so 50% damage bonus. And this will be really good if you can get a weapon where you essentially have infinite ammo, because Ripper is essentially the charge up and then fire fully automatic super quickly. So with some specific roles, this one could be very crazy. Then we have Ripper with Hard Charger. Weapons with Ripper licensed parts gain 25% damage, but charge time is increased by 30%. So it takes longer to actually charge up, but more damage when you get there. And this will still probably be worth for a lot of weapons. Then we have Ripper with Short Circuit. After reloading an empty magazine, guns with Ripper licensed parts have a 30% chance to dramatically increase the next magazine's fire rate. This one could be ridiculous depending on the weapon. If it has like a small magazine or even a large magazine or something like that, you can try to cause this. And I'm not sure if this is going to have a duration or if it's just for the entirety of the next magazine with no duration, because you could really set up some really big burst moments with this. Then we have TDR with Banger. Guns with TDR licensed parts use 50% maximum loaded ammo when calculating thrown damage. So if you don't know, TDR thrown damage works, which is you reload the weapon, and when you reload, you throw the weapon and it blows up or does something else. Based upon the amount of ammo is how it calculates damage essentially, and this will just count more ammo. So this is essentially just a big damage increase, but I'm sure there'll be some crazy calculations with how much damage this is actually increasing. Then we have TDR with Digi Divider. Weapons with TDR licensed part have a 50% chance to spawn an additional projectile on reload. This one's crazy because 50% is pretty good, and also some TDR can do pretty crazy damage on their reload. I could see this also being really good with the weapons with legs, so you just get another one with that, so this could be pretty crazy. Then we have TDR with Recycler. Guns with TDR licensed parts keep 50% of a magazine's ammo on reload, so that will help if the weapon really goes through ammo quickly. You might want this with specific weapons. Then we have Torg with Exploception. Weapons with Torg licensed parts fire stickies that hit for a bonus 50% damage when attached to an enemy. So this is basically just additional damage for basically the first time you're hitting enemies. Then we have Vladoff with Bottom Feeder. Guns with Vladoff licensed parts reduce underbarrel cooldown duration by 40%. And based upon a lot of the gameplay we've had, and with content creators going and able to play the game, underbarrel things were absolutely ridiculous. So this could be really strong. And we have Vladoff with Box Magazine. Guns with a Vladoff parts gain 20% fire rate and 20% magazine size. Just a massive stat buff to guns with Vladoff parts. This one may be really good for a lot of different builds. Then finally, we have a Vladoff with Bullet Hose. Guns with Vladoff parts have a 30% chance to add an additional projectile per shot. That one's also going to be really good for specific weapons, even though it's only a 30% chance. That over time can get really ridiculous. And this list doesn't have this, but we have gotten to see one legendary enhancement mod, and the legendary effect on that enhancement mod was a Boom Puppy. On kill, weapons with Torg licensed parts have a 50% chance to call down a missile barrage on a nearby enemy. This sounds like it's going to be pretty crazy, a 50% chance, but a missile barrage on a nearby enemy, if that does any decent damage, that's just ridiculous. Just calling down barrages of missiles for every 2 kills you get on average is kind of crazy. And also keep in mind, on legendary enhancement mods, you get 2. You get the legendary effect, which was Boom Puppy. This one also had Exploception, which we already went over. So legendary enhancement mods are going to give you 2 of the enhancement effects, which can be absolutely ridiculous. But that's pretty much all of the enhancement effects we've been able to see so far, and even this handful we've been able to see, which I think there's a lot more, especially since we've only seen one legendary. These things are going to be ridiculous, and I think these are going to be one of the strongest gear pieces in the game in Borderlands 4. Their effects are just absolutely crazy, and then once you start thinking of legendary effects that seem to have one legendary on them and then one randomly rolled on it, it seems, is going to be so ridiculous, especially when you get some crazy combinations with the licensed parts on weapons. This is probably going to be the mix of licensed parts on weapons and a legendary enhancement mods is probably going to be the most important parts of builds, just because of the crazy combinations you'll be able to make. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.